The last woolly mammoth died 4,000 years ago. Not 4 million, not 40 million, 4,000. When that happened, the pyramids were already there. Stonehenge was already there. People were writing things down, trading with each other, building actual cities. And somewhere up in the Arctic, on a tiny frozen island nobody had ever heard of, the last woolly mammoth was still just alive, going about its day. You probably picture mammoths the same way you picture dinosaurs, right? Like ancient, prehistoric, gone so long ago it barely even counts as the same planet. That's not really accurate. Dinosaurs died 66 million years ago. The mammoth died while Egyptian pharaohs were literally still in charge. Those are not the same category of thing. So what actually happened to them? Because the real answer, and I say this genuinely, is weirder and honestly more uncomfortable than anything you've probably been told. Stick around. This one's worth it. Let's start with what these animals actually were, because I think most people wildly underestimate the mammoth.
Mammoths and elephants
It was not a big
not
hairy elephant.
One is simply not
That's the thing people get wrong first. It was a completely separate species. Different animal entirely. Full-grown males were around 11 feet tall at the shoulder, 6 tons. Their tusks curved outward and upward and could reach 13 feet long, which, if you think about it, is longer than most living rooms. They used those tusks to sweep snow aside to get at the grass underneath, which is, I don't know, I find that detail kind of incredible for some reason. And these were not fragile animals, not even close. Mammoths had been on this planet for 5 million years. 5 million. They'd made it through multiple ice ages, volcanic winters, coastlines literally changing shape around them. At their peak, they were spread across Europe, Asia, North America, all at the same time. They weren't a species teetering on the edge. They were one of the most successful large animals that had ever existed. And they weren't alone either. The world they lived in had giant ground sloths the size of elephants, saber-toothed cats, cave lions, dire wolves, and yes, those were real, not just a Game of Thrones thing. Short-faced bears that stood taller than a grizzly on its hind legs, all of them gone now. Every single one of them, gone within roughly the same window of time. Scientists have been fighting about why for over 100 years. And honestly, they're still fighting, which should tell you something. There are 3 main theories. The first one is climate change. At the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, temperatures started rising pretty quickly. The cold, open grasslands that mammoths had always lived on, what scientists call the mammoth steppe, started shrinking. Forests moved in, wetlands expanded, their food supply was getting squeezed from every direction. And look, on paper that makes sense. Except mammoths had been through climate shifts before. A lot of them. Over 5 million years, the Earth had warmed and cooled over and over again, and every single time, mammoths adapted. Their range shifted. Their bodies adjusted. They figured it out. So why was this one different? Why did this warming finish them when the others didn't? That's the part the climate theory doesn't fully answer. Theory 2 is the one that's harder to sit with. Humans. Starting around 15,000 years ago, people started spreading across the globe, into North America, into Australia, into places no human had ever been. And wherever they showed up, the big animals started disappearing. North America lost something like 70% of its large mammals within a few thousand years of humans arriving. Australia lost around 90%. Archaeologists have found spear points literally embedded inside mammoth bones. There are kill sites where it looks like entire herds were driven off cliffs. Not a single mammoth here and there. Organized, coordinated, large-scale hunting. And here's the thing that really gets me. Mammoths had never encountered humans before. They'd evolved in places where we didn't exist. So they had no reason to be afraid of us, a 6-ton animal with 13-foot tusks, and it probably just stood there watching us walk toward it. No fear response, no avoidance. We must have seemed completely harmless. The third theory is disease. The idea that humans brought pathogens into mammoth territory that the animals had never been exposed to. Kind of like what happened when European diseases reached the Americas. Something spreading silently through herds before anyone even noticed it was happening. The evidence for this one is thinner, but researchers haven't ruled it out completely. Okay? Now here's the part most people have never heard. Some mammoths didn't die with the others. There's a small island way up in the Arctic, Wrangel Island, off the northeastern coast of Russia. When sea levels rose at the end of the Ice Age, this island got cut off from the mainland, and a small group of mammoths got stranded on it, completely isolated, surrounded by frozen ocean, no way off, and they just kept going for thousands of years. They even started evolving differently, getting a bit smaller each generation, the way island animals often do. While every other mammoth on the planet had already been gone for thousands of years, this little group on Wrangel Island was still alive as recently as 1650 BC. That's the Bronze Age. That's ancient history. That's Tutankhamun had already died by the time the last Wrangel Island mammoth disappeared. And then they were gone too. The genetic evidence from their remains is pretty grim. The population had gotten so small that inbreeding was unavoidable. Their DNA shows all the signs of a species in genetic freefall, mutations piling up faster than natural selection could deal with them. Loss of smell, neurological issues, fertility problems. The last mammoths on Earth were not what their ancestors had been. They were a shadow of it, and they had no idea. They were just living their lives on that little frozen island, the same way their ancestors had lived for 5 million years, completely unaware that there were no others left anywhere. Okay? So, the answer. Scientists now mostly agree it wasn't just one of those three theories, it was a combination. Climate weakening their range, humans hunting them, and a small, isolated population that eventually collapsed under its own genetics. All of it at the same time. But there's one more thing, and this is the part I think about the most. Right now, there's a company called Colossal Biosciences that is literally trying to bring the woolly mammoth back, using CRISPR, gene editing technology, to splice mammoth DNA sequences into Asian elephant cells. They're aiming for sometime around 2028. Think about what that actually means. The species that we very likely played a major role in wiping out, we are now spending millions of dollars trying to bring back. Let me zoom out for a second because this is where it gets uncomfortable. The overkill hypothesis, the idea that human hunting was the main driver of mammoth extinction, is backed up by a pattern that's almost impossible to argue with. Every continent where humans showed up late, the Americas, Australia, isolated islands, saw a massive collapse of large animals within a few thousand years of our arrival. Every single time, no exceptions. Africa and Asia lost fewer large animals, and the best explanation is that animals there evolved alongside us. They had time to figure out that we were dangerous. They learned to run. Mammoths never got that memo. And we are doing the same thing right now. We're living through the 6th mass extinction event in the history of this planet. Species are disappearing at a rate roughly 1,000 times higher than the natural background rate, and the cause is the same one it was 12,000 years ago. One species, expanding faster than everything else can adapt. The mammoth didn't die because it was weak. It survived 5 million years. It outlasted things we can barely imagine. It died because something came along that could plan ahead, that could coordinate with others, that could make tools and share information across generations. Something that didn't just hunt for today, but hunted to feed a whole group through an entire season. That something was us. The pyramids are still standing, the mammoth is not. Both of those things are true at the same time, and the species responsible for both of those facts is now trying to undo one of them. Whether that's hopeful or just deeply ironic, honestly, I'm not sure. I'll leave that one to you. If this kind of thing is what you're into, subscribe. Every video on this channel is about what we actually are, where we actually came from, and what that means for right now. And one question before you go. If colossal biosciences actually pulls it off, if there's a living woolly mammoth walking around somewhere by 2028, should they have done it? Tell me what you think below. I actually want to know.